Tonight on the Your Life Matters Show podcast.
So doom spending actually refers to spending money as a response to anxiety or pessimism about the future. It's different than normal impulse buying because normal impulse buying is typically, temporary every now and then, and we say that like retail therapy, it's usually occasional and mood based. But doom scrolling tends to be tied to deeper stress or hopelessness about long-term stability.
Behind every struggle, there's a story, and every story deserves to be heard. This is the Your Life Matters Show podcast. Your hosts are Steve Hodgson and licensed psychotherapist Dr. Eric L. Davis.
Tonight's episode is titled, Doom Spending, Why People Are Shopping Like the World is Ending. Over the past few years, the world has experienced something few generations have faced at the same time, a global pandemic, economic uncertainty, rising costs, and a constant stream of troubling news. During the first year of the COVID-19 pandemic, global rates of anxiety and depression increased by about 25%, according to the World Health Organization. In the United States, surveys found that more than 4 in 10 adults experience high levels of psychological distress during the pandemic. That's 40%. When people feel overwhelmed, uncertain, or anxious about the future, they often search for ways to cope. Sometimes those coping behaviors show up in unexpected places, including how we spend money. A growing trend known as doom spending is gaining attention around the world. Recent surveys suggest that more than a quarter of Americans, about 27%, admit to spending money to cope with stress about the economy and the future. Among younger generations, that number climbs even higher. Researchers say emotional distress, anxiety, and uncertainty about the future are major drivers behind this behavior. Buying something new may provide only a brief moment of relief, but that small sense of control is important in a world that sometimes feels unpredictable. But remember that relief is only temporary. For many people, the comfort of a purchase today may become the stress of a bill tomorrow. So, why do people turn to spending during stressful times? Is it simply impulse buying, or is something deeper happening in our psychology? Tonight, we will explore the psychology behind doom spending, the emotional triggers behind financial decisions, and how people can recognize when spending becomes a coping mechanism. Because understanding our behaviors is often the first step toward changing them. Here are your hosts.
All right. Well, howdy, everyone, and welcome back to the Your Life Matters Show podcast. Here we talk about real issues affecting real people and explore the mental health side of the world which we live in today. So I'm your host, Steve Hodgson, and joining me as always is my co-host, licensed psychotherapist Dr. Eric L. Davis, who's a trained professional who helps me navigate my own circus and manage my monkeys.
Always.
Okay, so don't go ape over that, but okay. It's actually interesting because the subject we're going to cover today, I'm sure it's been around for a long time, but I think it amplified a lot during COVID.
Yeah, seems to have, especially with Amazon.
Right. Oh, yeah. Well, I'm sure Jeff is laughing all the way to the bank. I mean, even to this very day, I still, when we're doing this today, I'm waiting for a big package, stuff that I ordered, a day ago. I mean, that's the thing, if you don't need something today, just order, and I ordered something for my pets from Petco the other day, and they delivered the same day.
Really?
Petco, yeah.
Man.
Here in Ocala, and there was no extra cost. As long as you were spending over $35, which it was some
Now you're not doom spending, are you?
No, no, yeah, trust me, with the amount of money I get to spend, it's doom as it is. So, before we get into tonight's topic, I want to speak to you about our sponsor, Waypost Counseling. You know that this show, it's a mental health podcast, and we always say if you need assistance, reach out to a professional right now. Well, at the Your Life Matters show, Dr. Davis has given you an avenue to reach out from your own home and begin to start on the road to recovery. The only puzzle piece that's missing is you making that first call. So let's give this a really close listen.
January came and went. We are sure you made your list of New Year's resolutions. Then February was here, then March, then April. If you are being honest, they were not resolutions. They were wishes so you would become a better you. For many who are suffering with some type of mental health issue, whether it be anxiety, stress, PTSD, marital issues, female issues, anger management, depression, grief, self-esteem, loneliness, gambling addiction, or substance abuse, any of the other resolutions are going to be difficult to achieve if you first do not make a resolution to take care of yourself first. At Waypost Counseling, we have helped many people begin that new journey even when it seemed hopeless. Some think the only way out is suicide. We are here to tell you, there is help. There is no need to continue to struggle alone. It is time to reach out and ask for help. And we want you to know that is not a sign of weakness. Instead, it is a sign of strength, courage, and a willingness to face the challenges you are experiencing head-on. Do it for those around you, your loved ones, but most importantly, do it for yourself. If you have a computer or laptop, you can get help from the privacy of your own home. There is no need to come to the office anymore. You can get help from anywhere in the United States. Pick up the phone and call Waypost Counseling today. Dial 317-762-0904 or 317-659-0179. You can also visit us on the web at waypostcounseling.com and request an appointment. Dr. Eric L. Davis, Aaron Davis, and Jeff Gazier are standing by to assist you. Hit the reset button on your life, your marriage, and help you feel once again that your life matters. You need to take that first step. Call Waypost Counseling right now. You will be glad you did.
So today we're diving into something that has quietly become a growing trend around the world, something psychologists and economists are now calling doom spending. And I'll be honest, until I saw that it was a trending topic, I had no idea what doom spending was. If you remember, I think an episode or two back, we talked about doom scrolling.
Oh, yeah.
And I had absolutely no idea what doom scrolling was. So I guess we're into doom spending now. We're consistent along the way. We follow. It's an idea that when people feel uncertain about the future, whether it's the economy, world events, personal stress, or even the constant negative news cycle, sometimes people cope by spending money in the moment. Now, we have none of that stuff going on in the world today. So I don't understand why that's a trending topic. So in other words, if the future feels unpredictable, why not enjoy something right now? But is that what's really happening?
It's a really interesting topic because what we're seeing is that spending isn't always about the item someone is buying. Often it's about the emotion behind the purchase. People may be trying to relieve anxiety, create a sense of control, or simply escape stress for a moment. And when the world feels uncertain, those emotional drivers can become much stronger.
And, we're not just talking about occasional retail therapy, as they say. Some studies show that people, particularly our younger generations, are spending more impulsively because they feel like long-term financial stability may be harder to achieve anyway. And if you remember, even in the Gen Z interview that we did, she was even talking about the financial future.
Yeah.
And, that's what they're worried about. That's like their number one thing, what are we leaving them and the future? So I really can understand that. So today we're going to try to explore what doom spending actually is, why people are turning to it, the mental health connection between the spending and what's going on in our brains, and how people can recognize the difference between healthy enjoyment and coping behavior.
And most importantly, we'll talk about what healthier coping mechanisms might look like, especially when people are feeling overwhelmed by uncertainty.
So if you've ever bought something just to feel better or found yourself spending money during stressful times, you're definitely not alone and you may want to listen to the show. So let's talk about it. Dr. Davis, for people who may not heard the term before, what exactly is doom spending and how does it differ from normal impulse buying?
So, doom spending actually refers to spending money as a response to anxiety or pessimism about the future. It's different than normal impulse buying because normal impulse buying is typically, temporary every now and then. You know, and we say that like retail therapy, it's usually occasional and mood based. But doom scrolling tends to be tied to deeper stress or hopelessness about long-term stability.
Well, we joked before we came on about Amazon, but
Hmm.
I find myself doing impulse buying a lot
Oh,
myself. You suddenly, I'll give an example. It wasn't, I think it was Home Depot or Lowe's had a big sale on leaf blowers. And
hmm.
we talked about it for a while, but you would say, yeah, we'll wait. We really don't need one right away. And boof, there was a sale, impulse buy, we bought it, instantaneously. So, that happens. As I say, I almost raised my hand when you started talking about impulse buying because I'm
Yeah.
one of those people. Doesn't have to be any other reason than I see it, I want it, and that's,
Hmm.
just the way I am. So when people engage in doom spending, what emotions are usually driving that behavior? Because, I'm confused. Is it anxiety, fear of the future, stress, or just a combination of all of it?
It's all of the above. So it's really anxiety, uncertainty, and stress. So people feel worried about the economy, their future, their personal circumstances, and spending becomes a quick way to temporarily escape those uncomfortable feelings.
You know, does it have to be all three of what you mentioned, or can just fear of the future?
It could be any of the above. It's basically when we spend money because of negative emotions.
Hmm. So, do you think this behavior is connected to people feeling that they lost control over the future,
Oh, very
or
much
is it
so.
economically, social, or I mean, personality?
All of the above. So when people feel powerless about large things, like economic instability or global uncertainty, which we're experiencing all of those types of things currently, spending money can feel like one of the few decisions that over which they have immediate control, you know?
My brain is brought back. I think we talked about it a couple episodes ago about Elon Musk's statement about not saving
Hmm.
for retirement. Okay. And, that kind of uncertainty to people today, well, guess what? Then I'm just going to spend my money. Okay.
Yeah.
Because, they're saying, look at him, he's the world's richest man. And he's saying, don't bother saving. He's working on AI. So, you know what? Let's just save, let's just spend it. I
If
mean,
I
that,
if I if I was nearly a trillionaire, I probably wouldn't worry about saving either.
well, yeah, exactly. If I was worth 375 billion dollars, I
Yeah.
probably would worry about it either. Um, so when someone buys something, even something small, it's often that temporary emotional boost. As I was watching something last night, it's that thrill. I think it's that thrill when you hit that buy now button. Okay,
Yeah.
that's where that I bought it, came from there. Okay, and then I'm sure there's a second one when it shows up, and you open the box and it's like, aha, here it is. Here's
Yeah.
my leaf blower, as I was talking
It
about.
it all comes down to dopamine hits.
Hmm.
you know, because when we buy something that activates the brain's, pleasure center basically, and it releases dopamine. So, um, especially if we're not having the best day in the world, getting that little dopamine hit can make a big difference, but it can also lead to us spending money that we didn't have to spend.
Yeah, and in our it's not talking about the economy and stuff, folks, but in the economy we're in now, it's pretty scary right now. The war in
Yeah.
Iran and stuff, nobody knows how long that's going to last. And, we already seen gas prices go up. So what's next? After that. And yeah, and I'm not trying to scare you into doom spending, folks. Okay. But,
Yep.
we have more of the opposite. Don't spend the money. Okay. Right
Hmm.
now. So as I said in the opening, some studies suggest younger generations are more likely to engage in doom spending because they feel long-term financial stability may be hard to achieve and may not disagree with them. So do you see any psychological patterns like that emerging?
A lot of times it's younger people, just because a lot of younger people feel uncertain about their long-term financial stability. So, things like housing costs, student loans, job security. Um, when people aren't certain about their future, they focus on more short-term satisfaction.
You know, I don't think, a lot of times when you're younger and you go to school, okay, and you take a student loan.
Hmm.
Okay. It's something, it's not tangible. You're not taking it out of your personal pocket and paying for it. This is all being done electronically. And I don't think you realize at the end when you come out and you owe 50, 100, $200,000, you're going to be paying that for a long time.
Yeah, absolutely.
And those aren't small payments you're going to be
No.
making every time. And you're going to pay back. If it's a $50,000 loan, you're probably going to pay back close to 75 to 80,000. It's like a mortgage.
Yeah.
Uh, so I was always brought up the way to say you're spending all that money on rent. Okay, why not just put all that money towards a house and at
Hmm.
least you're building equity for
Yeah.
yourself. But when you're looking at like, I'm selling my other home, the
Hmm.
55 and over home, and I'm about to take a butt wipe. Okay, with the cleanest way I can say it on YouTube here, because what the house should be worth and what it's worth right now are
Yeah.
just two completely different things.
Hmm.
So, here is you're thinking, well, you know what? I put X amount of dollars into the place. I've lived there 3 years, kept it up, fixed this, changed this, added this. And okay, so I already now taking $15,000 less than what I paid for it.
Yeah.
And forget about all the stuff I added to it. That's all gone too. And I still can't sell it right now in the market that we're in. It's absolutely insane. So I get, you know, we need to pay a little more attention, even if it's not psychologically,
Yeah.
financially. We need to
Absolutely.
start paying attention to it. No longer these kids, it's, oh, they're just being kids. Kids need to wake up because this is their future
Yeah.
that we're
It
talking
is.
about. Now, YouTube interrupted by commercials, scrolling on Facebook and the doom scrolling too. And there's an ad just about every few posts. Do you think that social media and that constant advertising makes doom spending worse by creating pressure to buy things or live in a certain lifestyle?
It definitely can. Because constantly seeing the advertisements or um, like you said, if I'm impulsive, I mean the more, those advertisements have gotten me numerous times. I'll be the first to say.
I studied marketing and advertising and stuff when I went to college. And, we always talked about kids, where
Hmm.
they always used to run those commercials on Sunday, Saturday morning cartoons, the big, with Transformers and all that other
Uh-huh.
stuff. And, and show it how cool it is and all the kids playing with it. And you show it 5 or 6 times, all of a sudden the kids run and say, Mom, I want a Transformer,
Yeah.
and now we have influences
Mhm.
that are coming out and saying, "Hey, look at my new Rolex watch that I
Yeah.
got. It keeps perfect time." Or my new Apple Watch. It keeps track of my heartbeat, keeps track of my blood sugar, and you know,
The other part of that with it being online, like, we've talked extensively on our show about how Facebook or social media can be, negative the
hmm
vast majority of the time. So what a perfect place for a dopamine hit purchase,
yep.
right in
Well,
the middle of looking at all the political fighting and everything. And it's like, oh, well, look at this new blanket, like,
Well, I've said this many times. Look at if you're not even on Facebook and you're searching Amazon or you're searching just Google,
Yeah.
looking for that blanket, okay?
Uh-huh.
Because you're thinking about getting a heated blanket for your bed because it's cold in the wintertime.
Or you're
That,
talking about blankets in your house and you
yeah,
start seeing
exactly. And
advertisements
then
for
you
all of
go
them.
on Facebook and there's the first five things are blankets.
Yeah,
Okay, it's kind of a little scary.
it
You know,
is.
you're being listened to, your TV, your phone, everything is listening to, not just you listening to us. There are other people listening to us as
Yeah,
well, especially on the internet. Gosh, only knows. You know, type in something to him on Facebook and say, yeah, I'm looking for a blanket. And all of a
yeah.
sudden, you know, next time you sign on, there's 16 blankets that they're
Well,
showing.
we'll have to touch base before our show next week and see if we've been getting blanket advertisements
Yes,
since
exactly.
we
Now we
mentioned it
talked
so
about
many
blankets.
times.
Heck, when I go on Facebook later, I'll actually see if it shows up on there because it's usually quick. So, at what point does emotional spending, because something someone should be concerned about, what point do we notice that? I mean, what are the warning signs that might suggest that a person is spending as a coping mechanism?
Basically, if we start noticing that, spending is becoming a common way of dealing with emotions, then that's something to definitely take a look at because, some of the warning signs would include buying things we don't need, feeling regret after purchasing, hiding purchases from others, or spending money that creates financial strain.
You know, and I was just going to say, I don't think they're going to retrospect on that until after they get the bills and realize that, you know, when they
Yeah.
have, what did I buy that for? You know, and we talked about the green screen, I think, last week when we were off the
Yeah.
air that
Yeah.
I had bought for behind me. I had attached the chair, and that's going back.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, it only covered like, you know, this much over my, you know, around. But what about over here? What about over there? You
Yeah.
know, I mean, all that stuff was still exposed. So, yeah, I mean, you know, it was a good idea. And it was an impulse buy for me. But I don't think it was
Yeah.
out of stress because I just don't allow myself to get stressed anymore.
Yeah.
You know, it's one of the
Well, the
great
good
things.
thing is, once you found out you don't need it, you're returning it,
Yeah.
you know?
And that's, you know, from a business side, that's killing businesses. I mean,
Yeah.
you see it on, now I'm not part of it anymore, but you see it on shows like Shark Tank, where you'll have Kevin O'Leary or somebody point out that, yeah, okay, you're doing X amount of sales, but how much in returns?
Right. Yeah.
Because you're probably getting 25, 30, 40% in returns. You know, I mean, that's why you're probably sometimes better off if you're a business selling it in a store because there's
Yeah.
only a 7-day policy on that.
Hmm.
You know, to get the refund. At least they got to exchange it for something, and you still get your money. You know, if you're a business owner. So, you know, the irony seems to be that spending relieves stress. Okay, but that can actually create more stress later on,
Yeah.
especially financially when those bills show up for everything you just spent. Or your spouse suddenly sees the credit card statement and says, what the heck is all of this? Okay. How does that cycle, I should say, develop psychologically?
So it starts with stress and anxiety, like we were talking about. Um, and, we start to get that short-term emotional relief from spending. But after the consequences kick in, and we like debt or guilt and create more stress, then that stress that's created can then trigger more spending to feel better again. And it's just a cycle, over time, it just becomes a self-reinforcing cycle.
You know, I started thinking of something when you were saying that, and I heard what you said, but my brain went off somewhere else. But I started thinking that the listeners, there may be some psychological or mental health problems of not going out to, let's say, Walmart and
Hmm.
having everything delivered to you.
Yeah.
Okay, that's not you know, doom spending.
Right.
Okay, that you might be some other issue of why you don't want to go to the store, but
Yeah.
that's not doom spending. You know, when you're buying necessities,
Yes.
that's not doom spending. We're talking about when you're buying stuff that you want, but you really don't, you can live without right
Yeah.
now, but you buy it because you see it and that's what you want. So I want to make sure, like people that, you know, are thinking, Well, heck, I go online and I buy new underwear. So I'm
Yeah.
not wearing the same pair for 3 years, or at least every 2 years. I can change them. I mean, something that's not doom spending. Doom spending is after you buy a 24 pack of them, and the
Yeah.
next week you see them on sale. Say, hey, you know what? I can save some money. Let me buy 24 more.
Yeah.
That's the kind of stuff that's stressed out from. So we're gonna play a little game,
All
and
right.
most of our listeners know what this little game is. It's called.
It's the lightning round.
Yes, it's time for the lightning round. See, so I'm going to ask Dr. Davis 10 questions. They'll give a few word answers, a short sentence and stuff to it. So, okay, here we go. Number one, is doom spending mostly emotional or logical?
Emotional.
True or false? Buying something can actually improve your mood, at least temporarily.
True.
And that's what you said with the dopamine.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
That was right.
Dopamine hits, man.
Yep. In your opinion, what's the most common emotional trigger for impulse spending?
I think the uncertainty,
Okay, so finish this wonderful sentence. People are most likely to spend emotionally when they feel.
stressed.
Is retail therapy ever healthy in moderation, or is it always a red flag?
No, I think it could be helpful in moderation now and then. Like if it's, if you're rewarding yourself for doing something good or, something like that, it's really just, especially if it's a big ticket item that we need,
Hmm.
that'd be one of the best, shopping experiences.
See, I hear people say they go into Walmart, they have a list, it costs about $100, and they come
Yeah.
out paying $225 because you're walking by and you see a shirt, or a pair of
Yeah.
pants or a pair of shorts. It's something that's impulse buying, which is fine in
Yeah.
moderation as long as you can afford it, and not now you spent the money for your electric bill, or your heating bill. Okay, that's something that's important. Um, what is one simple habit people can use to stop themselves from making an impulse purchase?
Put some time between, when you think about it, or when the thought first occurs to buy it, it just puts some time between then and when you buy it. So, something that I remember hearing about a long time ago. I've never done this, but I've always remembered it is you could actually like put your credit card in a bowl of water and freeze it. And then, then that would stop you. You'd have to take the bowl out and wait for it to unfreeze before you could make the purchase or
You better put
things
some
like
dye
that.
coloring in the ice because I still see people looking it up in the thing, but they can
Yeah.
actually microwave it now, so it doesn't make a difference. Within 30 seconds, you can probably get your credit
True.
card. So that worked a while ago, but I don't know if it would work anymore. Do you think social media makes emotional spending worse?
Absolutely. Yeah. And for the reasons that we talked about, just, constantly seeing, there's the old saying, keeping up with the Joneses, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and it's, basically if we're looking for, what do I not have? If we go on Facebook, we're going to probably run across all sorts of things that we feel like we need, even though we didn't need them before we looked at Facebook. You know what I mean?
It's humorous because I'll be hold it till I finish the lightning round. Number eight, if someone waits 24 hours before buying something they want, does that help break the impulse cycle?
Yes.
Yeah, we just talked about that. Nine, one word that describes the feeling people are usually trying to buy when they feel doomed.
Peace. So peace
Mhm.
of mind.
And the final lightning round question. What's one thing people should remind themselves before making a purchase when they feel stressed?
Do I really need that right now?
Mhm. See, what I was going to say, and I didn't want to break the flow of that, was we've been looking at a riding mower
Uh-huh.
for the house that we're in now. And, my wife said, look on Facebook, for a used one
Yeah.
because you get one for half the price. But you also get half the price, but also another 50% of the problems
Yeah.
that could go wrong with that. And at least if you're buying it um, new, it's on warranty.
Yeah.
They come and fix it. There was one that I was looking at close by here. It was like $1,200 compared to the cheapest one, which is like 2,200. And he has knew this, knew that, knew that. He said he had to pick it up, but I talked him into he was going to charge me $50 to deliver it. That's still fine.
Yeah.
But my wife, when she's researched the model, said, did you look? This has a problem with this, and that. And I'm like, oh, well, they all do, but that's why he's got a new carburetor on it. He's got a new all this stuff. And she says, yeah, we're probably better off getting a new one. I was like, gee, where did I hear that before? But okay. So, I sent him a message back and said, you have to discuss with my wife. We decided it's probably better off buying a new one. And
Yeah.
he came back, and his answer, which scared me after that, was very smart person.
Yeah.
So was he selling a problem? That there was something else wrong with his too, but it's like, okay, I covered it up. It will last for a month or two, but then it's going to have problems again.
Yeah.
So again, don't do that impulse buy because I really was about to pull the trigger on that. I had the
Uh-huh.
cash in hand and everything was ready to go and decided I was going to wait. I was going to talk to her and everything else. So just take that step back. Nobody says you're not going to have to buy it, but take that step back and research it first, think it out
Yeah.
before you go into it. So I know this has been a little shorter episode, but that's okay. We're covering an important topic. So I got three final questions before we
Okay.
get out of tonight's episode. Now, do you think that doom spending is really about money, or is it more about people trying to find comfort and control in a really uncertain world we're living in?
It really is. It's the emotional aspect. It really is about comfort and control.
Mm-hmm. It as I said earlier, this is a really crazy time that we're
It
living in
is.
right now. I'm hoping it's not the start of World War III and
I
everything
do
else,
too.
but it could really be. Yeah, I'm not no conspiracy things here, but it's strong
Yeah.
possibility of it. And now they've even said they're going to attack the US, or at least at recording time here. They were talking about that. So, is Indianapolis going to be like one of the spots they hit?
Yeah. Could be. I
Yeah,
don't know. I
I
hope
always liked
not.
Westport because I was like, what are they going to blow up some cows? But
Yeah.
you never know. They got those missiles that split off into like 100 different fragments. I don't remember what they're called, but some of those fragments can hit
Yeah.
outside of the target. So now for someone who recognizes that they may be doing this, what are some healthier ways people can cope with stress or uncertainty instead of turning to spending?
I think the biggest thing is to just, remember that stress spending, it's a signal. It's a signal for something that's taking place. It's not a personal failure,
Hmm.
So it's often our mind trying to cope with the uncertainty, and recognizing the pattern is the first step toward finding healthier ways to deal with stress and regain control.
Correct me if I'm wrong because on this, but isn't that one of the triggers that we watch for with addiction?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I know myself that, I told you I dabbled in coke and stuff like that,
Yeah.
that I know in my brain, when I start to think about that, okay,
Mhm.
I've learned to like step back and say, okay, what's going on around me that's making me
Yeah.
even think about, not saying, oh, I need it now, that type of, but
Yeah.
when the thought even comes into my head, it's like, okay, wake up, something's going on around me that's making me even just consider that, you
Yeah.
know, and that what we need to realize is when we start thinking, I need to spend something, or I really need to have that right now. I know I don't need it, but I want it. That's a sign, like, with an addicted person, to step
Yeah.
back and say, okay, what's going on? Why am I
Yeah.
feeling this
Why
way?
am I wanting to spend this money?
Right,
Like,
exactly. I
what
don't
is it
have
that
it.
I think what type of feeling is it I think I'm going to get from, spending this money?
See, I think we're like Gen Z that had credit cards.
Yeah.
So again, the same way with student loans, they don't see it until they run up $25,000 in debt.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden, the credit's cut off, and now you have debt collectors calling,
Yeah.
looking for money, and probably mommy and daddy probably co-signed, and they're getting the debt calls now,
Yeah.
from somewhere. So the last question I have to ask, If someone watching today feels like they may be falling into that pattern, what's one important thing you'd want them to remember?
Just remember that it's not, like it's not a moral failure. Just keep an eye on that. And if you're really struggling with spending money, speak to somebody. Call a professional, talk about what's going on. Worst case scenario, you find out, oh, it was just a false alarm, you know.
Hmm.
But I think a lot of times just trying to handle things on our own can sometimes just really set us up for issues.
There's no sin again, to say, take that step back. What's going
Yeah,
on? Really, I self and now evaluation. I think is probably a good word. There's probably a better word for it. But you need to evaluate what's going on in your own life.
yeah,
And I think you should really be aware of that at all times anyway. If you find
agreed.
yourself start, getting stressed out over little things, there's something more behind that. It's not that, your spouse left dishes in the sink.
Right.
Okay. There's probably a little more behind that than just the
Mhm.
dishes in the sink. So we
Yeah,
we always need to stop and say, well, where the hell did that come from?
yeah.
I mean, I've done it a few times where I've, exploded over something and
Mhm.
it walked
Why am I
away
so
that
mad?
the hell was wrong with me.
Yeah.
And, that's not supposed to be happening. Well, Dr. Davis, it's been a really interesting conversation. I think a lot of people watching today may recognize themselves in some of the things that we talked about.
When the world feels uncertain, stressful, or overwhelming, it's very human to look for something that gives us comfort in the moment. And sometimes that comfort shows up in the form of spending money.
But as we discussed today, understanding why we do something is also the first step forward towards making healthier choices.
That's absolutely right, Steve. Emotional spending doesn't mean someone is irresponsible or careless. It often simply means they're trying to cope with stress, anxiety, or uncertainty. The important thing is recognizing the pattern and learning healthier ways to manage these emotions so that short term relief doesn't create long term stress.
Exactly. And hopefully today's discussion helps people pause for a moment and ask themselves a simple question before they make that purchase. Am I buying this because I need it? Or am I buying it because I'm just trying to feel a little better right now?
Yeah, sometimes just asking that simple question can make a huge difference.
So we want to thank all of you for joining us for this episode of the Your Life Matters Show podcast. It's a little shorter than the usual ones, but you know what? I want to make up like, when we did with Tim and Lauren, that was like an hour and a half show, hour 40
Yeah.
minutes. So,
We're just giving some time back.
right, exactly. Yeah, we're giving you back a little bit. We don't want you to think every show is going to be that. Coming up in the next couple of weeks, we just already had Mike Bartlett last week, but we have a couple of great guests that are going to be coming on the show, sharing their stories with us.
Yeah.
Their personal stories, and I think that hits a lot of people on this show. Exactly.
So remember, you can visit us on the web at yourlifematterspodcast.com, where you can learn more about our show, request to be a guest, or purchase some official merchandise and so much more.
I just talked about the four people that are coming up, and they've all requested to become a guest on the show. So,
Yeah.
we do take, I don't think we've turned anyone really away yet. We do
Yeah.
research the stories, make sure you're legit, folks. So understand that we're just not taking
Yeah.
everybody. But if we feel the story has a good mental health aspect and it's a good learning, story,
Yeah.
then, and story on recovery is always a learning story. So, on a serious note, there are many of you that are watching these episodes, and we're grateful for that. I mean, we can't even begin
Yes.
to tell you. But if you can help us, and it's something that doesn't cost anything, I'm not asking you to send us money, or you see a lot of people that buy us a cup of coffee or something like that. No, we're not asking for any money. We're asking you just two things: hit the like button that's there, and hit the subscribe button. That's all you got to do. Okay, it doesn't cost you anything. It takes about 10 seconds. Click, click, and you're done.
Yeah.
Okay, what it does is it helps us get the message out to more people. The show is not monetized, So, but it helps with that algorithm that we talk about so many times on these shows. Helps us get the video in front of more people who may need to hear this message every single week.
Yeah. And if you found today's conversation helpful, please consider sharing it with someone who might benefit from this discussion.
So no matter what challenges you're facing, please always remember your life truly does matter. God bless you, and we hope to see you again next time.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Your Life Matters Show podcast. If today's conversation resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share the episode so more people can be part of these important conversations around mental health. And remember, your life matters. We hope to see you again next week.